Hey guys, this is Tom Paul Tipton, your host for the Exchange Podcast. We're coming to you from Living Water Church in Conway, Arkansas. I'd like to welcome you back to another episode and say thank you to those who support this podcast with your contributions. Please like and share us on Facebook and get the word out, and like, subscribe, and share us on YouTube. Send any questions you have and join in on the exchange. I'm going to point something out here too. Abortion and gay marriage, if there's another civil war, those will probably be, God help me, because I don't want a civil war. This is hypothetically speaking. If there's another civil war, it will be over gay marriage and abortion. And I will say this. Look at the states that are standing against both of those issues, and to the point that they can, especially abortion.
So there you have it, folks. Thomas predicting the future about Roe v. Wade and abortion and being the catalyst for all of our insane in the membrane folk out there.
Well, that was the clip from last week, and in 5 short days, so much stuff happened. Am I gleeful about this? No. I do believe that abortion will be the catalyst that creates another civil war, whether it's hot or cold. And I pray to God every day it doesn't go hot. But I've had some people disagree with me on that ever since I said it. And I said that on because we recorded last week on Monday, because we typically do these on Saturday. But last week we had to do it on Monday. I say that, and I bet, 4-6 hours later, I'm sitting in the living room, and I get a text on my phone, and it says that this has been leaked. Now, again, let's bear in mind.
Oh yeah, I think I sent you that, right? The text.
No,
message?
I got that from. I got that
from somebody else.
From an app that I follow.
I just remember seeing it on Reddit, and I thought, "Oh, this is a joke. This is completely a joke."
I thought it was a joke because it's not really something that's been discussed, and anytime it's ever been discussed about overturning Roe v. Wade, you're just kind of going, I don't think that's going to happen.
What do you think?
Not in our lifetime.
What do you think is more concerning? And this is going to probably, quote unquote, trigger people. What's more concerning, the fact that they're going to overturn Roe v. Wade, or it was leaked?
It was leaked because here's the reason. Okay, here's what I think, and I said this from the moment that I read that it was overturned. I think that the Democrats know they're going to lose big in the midterm election. They have nothing to run on. Inflation's high. Just as you and I were talking prior to the show, whether you agree or disagree with Donald Trump, employment was up, unemployment was down for for all races, for minorities, it doesn't matter. Hispanics, blacks, it doesn't matter. It was up. Gas prices were low. I don't remember who it was, but he said, ever since Joe Biden, and he's a senator, I believe, he said, ever since Joe Biden took office, everything's looking up. Gas prices are up. Car payments are up. Interest rates are up. You know what I'm talking about?
It wasn't a senator. It was at the correspondence dinner, and that was Trevor Noah.
Okay, so you know who that was who said it. Okay.
He looks distinguished like a senator.
Yeah, and that was why. And I loved it. I thought, man, that's really clever line. And that's going to be a great campaign slogan.
You know what's funny is, I watched that clip, and then you watch old correspondence dinners.
Mm-hmm.
Man, they really went after the government folk really hard back in the day. Norm Macdonald. I don't know if any of you guys know who Norm Macdonald is, but probably one of the funniest guys in the last 3 decades.
Mm-hmm.
But he had a joke where, and it was tame, but the context of it was so horrifyingly just bad, where he said, and nobody was laughing because it was true, but there's a clip where he goes up there and he says, there was a tragedy struck with a senator when he drank too much and went home and slept with his own wife. It's like, whoa.
That's his That's his shtick, man. That's how he makes his comedy. Just saying stuff that's completely like, where did that come from?
But if you go watch this clip, and I would tell her, just go on YouTube, type in Norm Macdonald correspondence dinner, and man, everybody in that crowd is just giving him the death glare.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're telling the quiet part out loud, and I think that's what's important. But the thing is, here's why I'm talking about this: is that what's important is calling people out, but doing it in a way where you get people to think, and you're not just handing people over on a silver platter. What do I mean by that? Timcast.com, they have an article, and title reads, White House refuses to condemn activist group who posted home addresses of the Supreme Court justices.
See, there's why I'm saying that the leak is more dangerous.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where I was headed with that. Because the point is, I don't think that the conservatives or the Republicans are going to lose necessarily. And I've had a conversation about this ever since this whole thing came out. And like I said, the clip that we played earlier, when I said last week that I believe that this would be the thing that would start another civil war, I had people that were in complete disagreement. Oh, no, we're going to fight the globalists. Oh, no, we're going to do this. Look, the globalists are for civil war. And so that they started doxing these guys. This is what the left does that irritates me more than anything else. They want to say, well, the Christians were the first cancel culture. No, look, the Christians got involved in a lot of boycotts that I thought was needless and silly, but they never doxed people. They never gave away addresses and phone numbers and family members' names.
Something that you'll see most of the time, and a lot of people, I hear a lot of people getting upset about this. Don't call it the they, them. It's not, we're not against them. They're not against us. It's like, well, when they're going against principles that people hold near and dear, very fervently, I should say, then yeah, it is an us versus them thing. For me, I want to say, don't go out and dox people. Do not fight people physically. Use the system that we have. Defend yourself. Yeah. By all means, defend yourself. But like I was saying in that article, there's a quote from wonderful Jen P. Psaki.
Which she's resigning, by the way.
She says, I think the president's views is that there is a lot of passion, a lot of fear, a lot of sadness from many, many people across the country about what they saw in the leaked document. Now, here's the thing. They can make an excuse for doxing people, for putting people's lives literally in danger. If you think that your address on the internet will not get you in trouble, you got another thing coming. That's why you should I always suggest get a P.O. box so that when you're filling out, if you're voting, because you should vote, if you're voting, you should put your P.O. box down, because if you put your actual address, guess what? That is public knowledge. You can find that on the internet. And even if it's not, if somebody finds your address, if you don't think that's a problem, that's a huge problem. We're talking about, doxing. Think of it this way. How do you think the KKK figured out if a black person was moving into a specific neighborhood? And I bring that up. I don't usually bring super extreme things up like that, but not only, of course, hey, this black guy moved into my neighborhood. Yeah. That was the original doxing. It was a white guy telling the local Klan members, hey, y'all, got a black man who moved in my neighborhood. I don't want the market tanking, and I hate black people. I don't know. That's probably how they spoke, but that's the original doxing, taking somebody's private life and putting it out there for everybody to see. Yeah. And it's dangerous.
Well, and doxing is bad enough, but you know who Chelsea Manning is, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Former, his name, her name, whatever you want to call him, was Bradley Manning. And so, former military intelligence had a lot of stuff to do with the WikiLeaks.
Yep.
So goes and becomes into a woman, and on her Twitter, his Twitter, whatever you want to call her, him, her, says, for those of you who are just catching up, if you are able to afford it, and if it is safe for you to do so, you should consider arming yourselves, then finding others to train with in teams and learn how to defend your community. We may need these skills in the very near future. Now, first off, let me point this out. These are the same people that are all concerned over Elon Musk buying Twitter. Okay? All right. Can't have freedom of speech if you disagree and dissent with them, the people on the left. This all goes back to what we were talking about with confusion last week. And it's the same thing here. This is Governor Newsom of California gets on and he starts talking about he comes out and says that a man should not have any right to tell a woman what she can do with her body. Okay, wait a minute, because it's your side who's been telling us all along that men can become pregnant. But now you're saying that they can't. It's when certain things play in their favor, now all of a sudden we aren't allowed to say certain things. No, wait, if I can become a trans and get pregnant, then I should be able to say whether or not I want abortion.
Thomas, I'm going to need you to show me your credentials. Are you a biologist?
No, I know one.
Okay, well,
and I did consort with them over this.
Well, hey, you have look. Even though you're not a biologist, I guess you could become a Supreme Court justice. But that's true. The confusion is getting out of hand because not only are these the same people who are getting upset about Twitter, but a couple years ago, aren't these the people who were telling us we should just hand over our guns?
Okay, watch this. And I'm not wanting to stay too long on this tweet, but there's a certain person. And I won't name the person. You can go to Chelsea Manning's Twitter if you want to find out. But she responds, she says, I used to be opposed to the idea of owning firearms, with no small part being how much I felt I would be at risk of self-harm from depression I had before transitioning. So obviously this is a she too. But now this doesn't seem like an extreme message, which is terrifying. Okay, the left is arming. This is what I've been saying. This is why that I am saying that this is going to be the catalyst, because first off, let me say something to you. Abortion is something that the federal government, it needs to be out of the federal government's hands. This has nothing to do with the federal government. The federal government, it has, I'm going to say this, we always want to talk about male narcissism. Everybody wants to talk about that, but every bit of this has been made about a woman's body and her right to abort a baby. This has nothing to do with a woman's right over her own body. This has to do with states' rights. That's what all this is about. It's about states' rights. Right. And so the federal government does not have the right to tell me, I'm a Christian, I'm more of the conservative side. I'm not exactly a conservative. I do lean, well, I'm going to say, no, I am a conservative in a lot of views. And one of the views is I do not believe the government has the right to be dipping into my billfold, taking my money, and paying for someone else's abortion. And you know what? If I want to live in a state where the abortion is legal and they do that, I'll move to one of those states. Yeah. That's the way this works. That's the way all this works. And so, you know, when I'm going to show you something here.
Got the Constitution.
I've got the Constitution, man, because
this is it. This is it. Second to the Bible.
That's
I'm being serious. I'm being dead serious.
So where does all this come from? Where does all of this come from? Why do states have the right to say whether or not a woman can have an abortion? Or better yet, why do states have the right, not to say whether a woman has the right to get an abortion, but the state has the right to protect the rights of people who do not agree with abortion? Because listen to me, we need those guys like Alito on the bench. And expansion of the court isn't going to fix this. Expansion of the court is going to be the worst thing possible. This is how Venezuela and those guys sink into their problems. The reason that we need people like Judge Alito's, the Justice Alito's, and those guys like that on court is because, number one, they understand. All we hear from the left is separation of church and state, separation of church and state, until the state wants to come in and dictate to the church. And I'm going to make a second prediction here, and I've said this for years. We see it already in Canada, we see it in Europe, and they're going to try it here. One of the things that they're going to start with persecution of the church is hate speech. If they disagree with what, and we're already seeing it with Facebook, we're already seeing it with all the misinformation and all that nonsense, and I love what Rand Paul said. I don't know if you saw this, but Rand Paul was talking, and he said, do you understand that the government has no business with their hand on what disinformation or misinformation is?
Yeah.
He said, because do you not remember, and he mentioned I think it was the MacArthur hearing, but then the other one that he mentioned was G.W. Bush and the weapons of mass destruction. I mean, he blasted both of them. And whether you agree or disagree, okay, we should have went into Afghanistan. Iraq was just, I'm going to get even for what you did to my dad. And so I want to get off that subject, but what I'm trying to say is the government, there's certain things the federal government does not have any business in. And here is why that states have the right to make these choices. It is all about the 10th Amendment. Very few people will even know what that is. The 10th Amendment simply states this: the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. What that means is that it is a states' rights issue. Why? Because abortion is not mentioned in the Constitution, so therefore the states reserve the authority and the rights.
Let each state dictate how they want to do things. Now, here's the thing. The Civil War, our Civil War, because there's other civil wars that have happened throughout the world. I'm aware of that. But the Civil War, if you live in the United States, you know what I'm talking about. That had a lot to do with slavery. This does not come close to owning a person.
Mm-hmm.
So what am I getting at? This would be a dumb thing to fight over.
Yes.
Okay? Let me say it again. It would be idiotic to be fighting over abortion rights. Yeah. You don't want... Here's my thing. If you live in a state, let's say you live in the great state of Arkansas. I say that loosely. But you live in Arkansas. Beautiful, wonderful. But let's say they ban abortion outright. Or they say you can have a private company that does abortions, but no longer will it be on, like Thomas said, on the bill of the taxpayer.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fine. Does it mean it's probably going to get a little bit more expensive because it's a private company doing the abortion? Well, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But that's not my problem. That's not anybody else's problem if they don't want to make it their problem. And I've heard the arguments, oh, well, you know, those senators and their mistresses and maybe their daughters are going to go out and, okay, you know what? Okay. But individually, if they're going to do that, they're going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't control them.
Right.
But I encourage every God-fearing, Bible-believing Christian to know that abortion is wrong. I would encourage you to look into that and realize why it's wrong, but also know it's not your problem.
Yeah.
However, it is your problem if you're in a state where it's legal and your taxpayers are paying for it, then yes, you are part of that problem. And I would consider either moving or trying to vote to make the state law different. But again, if you start fighting over this, when we actually fought a more just war for the freedom of human beings, then you are no better than the idiots who fought over oil.
Well, that's why that they want to make they want to reference it as fetus. Which, by the way, of course, Louisiana is very strong Catholic.
Oh, didn't they just?
They just advanced a bill that and here's the kicker on this. Their governor is Democrat, but he's for this bill. Their bill goes so far as to say that life begins at conception. So it completely eradicates the whole fetus idea. Now, I am in agreement with that. Again, if you want an abortion, you can go to a state that provides that.
Yeah.
If you don't like your state's ruling on that. However, when it comes to slavery, yeah, there was an argument for that. That's the reason why we had a convention of states. 2/3 of the states ratified and voted and passed the 13th Amendment. They made the 13th Amendment part of the Constitution, so therefore slavery is illegal. And the Constitution specifically, and it was based on it was based on a majority of the country voting slavery out of law.
Well, the reality is that when you're fighting, when you go to war for trying to free people out of slavery, that's a difference. Because these people are in turmoil. I mean, like you said, the people who voted it out, they had a moral compass to say, okay, this is wrong. We shouldn't be, I know some people, I know there are stories, and a lot of people are going to say, oh, there's stories of people freeing the slaves because it would be better business for them. Okay, sure. There are always going to be some bad actors in every corner of the world. That's just how this world is.
Yeah.
But I hear people saying, oh, well, the last time the South said states' rights or anybody said states' rights, we went to war over slavery. And I'm thinking, yeah, because they were trying to own human beings.
Yeah.
Again, this is something where, because here's the thing. whether you believe it's a fetus or not, if you believe it's a fetus, then it's kind of a dumb thing to fight over.
Yeah.
If you think it's a baby, then yeah, I can understand you wanting to vote it away. But right now we're looking at it where one side, and yes, there are sides, one side is saying, no, we need to scratch, claw, fight because we want these abortions. But man, I'm not seeing satire anymore about abortions. Before it was, before there were some edgy jokes about abortion. I'm sure you've heard them.
Oh, yeah.
They were on South Park. They were on Family Guy. They were on.
Speaking of satire, though, did you see the Babylon Bee? Babylon Bee satire on abortion?
Mm-mm.
I can't remember it all. But you just go look it up.
Look it up. Babylon Bee abortion. I'm sure they have some good ones. But abortion used to be a satirical, funny joke to make. I remember being in high school. I remember being in college and making some funny jokes and laughing about them. Now that I'm older, now that I'm thinking about having kids and really looking into that, I've matured and I've gotten past those. Do some of them still make me laugh? I'm sure they'll probably make me laugh. But the point is that they're not satire anymore. You'll go on TikTok, Thomas, and I swear to you, it just blows my mind. There's like montages of these people just saying, "Oh yeah, they're using fetuses into put into stem cell research, or should we use them for proteins in our food or whatever?" And you're thinking, oh, okay, some of these people are making it a joke, but then there are these women who are like, I got an abortion, I'd do it again. I think it's great.
Right.
Am I killing a kid? Yeah, probably. But hey, good riddance. And I'm thinking, I really hope you're joking. I pray you are, because being in charge of youth group, you see these kids. I have my niece, I have my nephew, and I watch. They're young, they're babies. They're 1 to 2 years old. Then I see the teenage boys that I have in my youth group, and then I see the boys and girls at the high school that I work at,
Right.
And I think to myself, boy, these lives are precious.
Yeah.
They're just great. Are they annoying at times? Sure. But they are still great, and they still deserve this life. And is this life tough? Yes. But I'm going to quote Vision from Marvel's The Age of Ultron. Something isn't beautiful because it lasts.
Right. Well, I'll quote a movie. And it was in The Dark Knight. And one of the things that, what is the guy that he's Batman's main rival?
Joker.
No.
Bane. Ra's al Ghul.
Ra's al Ghul.
Sorry, guys. I'm a nerd.
He says in the one scene to Bruce Wayne, he says he says criminals prey on the understanding of society. And I know Ra's al Ghul's this evil dude. And so what he's doing is he's quoting a truth from that side. And they do prey on that understanding. And this is where we are right now. That's the reason why we have all these emotional appeals of arguments. Well, but it's you're going to save thousands of lives. Yeah, we're also going to save millions of lives. And so you mentioned about, slavery as far as they had a moral compass. Well, there's a reason why they had a moral compass, because, again, prior to the Civil War, some years before, there had been a spiritual awakening that had come through the country. There were revivalists, circuit riding preachers, all these different people that were coming through. They were preaching. People were getting saved. People were being awakened. And I mentioned this last week, and I'll mention it again. One of the things that we try to do on this podcast more than anything else, we're not a news podcast, but one of the things we try to do on this podcast more than anything else is bring in the day's news to relevance to the people that are listening, and to really to the church, and to just anyone that listens to this, okay? Whether you're a Christian or not. Because we have to look at certain things. And is there a moral compass? Should there be a moral compass? Absolutely there should be a moral compass. I mean, look at one of the things, Israel, every time they were in a backslidden state, one of the first things they did was they started sacrificing their kids to Moloch. That was one of the first things they did. And that's what we're doing. We're not calling it Moloch. We're just calling it Planned Parenthood. And I remember I had to go. Okay, this was right after Nashville. I was still living in Nashville. And I had to go down to I had to go down to an area down there, and it was right there where Planned Parenthood was at. And there was some people that were there protesting, people going in, but they weren't really being, they were obeying the law in that they weren't blocking and not allowing people to get in. They were just, trying to hand out, basically their form of protest was very mild. They were just handing them pamphlets and, just trying to talk to them. But I'll never forget, there was this couple that was in there, and I saw her come walking out, and she was just, in tears. I could tell she was in tears. And her conscience, I could see, was just not good. And she had just went in and had the procedure. And the guy she was with, whether boyfriend or husband, I'm not sure. I know they were together. He was the father. I know that. And I remember her walking out looking like having that feeling of murder. Really, that was about the best way I could explain it on her face. And he's just walking out behind her on his cell phone, just another day for him. And I was like, see, there's the picture that they don't want to show people. They don't want people to see the trauma that it costs these people when they go in. And 2 Chronicles 7:14, this is why that they had a moral compass to end slavery. 2 Chronicles 7:14 says, and my people who are called by my name humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways. Then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. This has nothing to do with the society getting this epiphany. What I do sometimes wonder if a society, if we're not seeing a potential great awakening, because this does stand to cost us in the midterms. Because ever since they leaked that on Monday night, you can go to the news and you can see where all these people are. Like you said, they're standing in front of, they've doxed addresses to justices, and they're doing things to try to intimidate and doing things to try to riot. This could cost the Republicans and the conservatives in the midterm elections. It could. I don't think it will, but it could. So the point being is, a lot is going to depend on how much we, the church, stand our ground and pray that this is more than just an opinion by Justice Alito. We pray that, hey, this actually happens, and then we repent of all these abortions that we have permitted, because when we do that, then God will heal our land. And as we were talking earlier about, we've heard it. I'm sure almost all of us listening to this have heard somebody this week say, well, Republicans and conservatives and people on the right have always been on the wrong side. We may be on the losing, how can I say this? Politically, well, we might suffer. But when all this plays out, we're not going to lose.
So a part of that is when somebody says that you're on the wrong side of history, usually they end up being on the wrong side of history. Yeah. And I'm not saying that Republicans are exempt from being on the wrong side of history. They've made their mistakes. We all have seen, everybody's made a mistake here and there. What I don't want is for people thinking that because we reference the Bible, that we don't see what is an atrocity in there. I like when people bring up, well, weren't there slaves in the Bible? Weren't people enslaved in the Bible?
It was a different kind of slavery.
Didn't God, have people enslaved? And the thing is, you want to take it in the context of what we know slavery to be. And it's like Thomas said, it was a different type of slavery. And yes, there are atrocities that happen in this world that God allows because he gives us the free moral agency to make those decisions. Mm-hmm. God hasn't made us a robot and said, Thomas, you're a good person, therefore you're not going to do any atrocities. But that Adolf Hitler that was just born, he is programmed to do something terribly, terribly wrong. And so...
But Hitler also had all the same choices that we do.
Exactly. Everybody has a choice. Everybody has a decision to make. So when people sit here and say, oh, well, you guys aren't exempt from your bad choices, you're right. The church has made mistakes in the past. And that's why it says in Chronicles is if my people turn and repent, because God knows that we are going to make mistakes. I
Yep.
used to tell the young men in my cabins when I was a camp counselor, I'd used to tell them, guys, God knows we're dumb.
Yeah.
God knows that we are not him. And so he set up contingencies throughout his entire word to remind us that his grace is sufficient.
Yeah.
And that he wants us to know that he thinks we're worthy of being forgiven. You know, he wants to do that. It's a dumbfounding thing to think about, but it's true. This is we have given everybody the excuse to do whatever they want, and that's part of the problem. That is the main problem. Earlier we talked about Jen Psaki saying that people are emotionally distraught, so therefore we should allow them to dox people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you didn't want to get pregnant, but you decided to have relations with somebody, and then you got pregnant, and now you want to shirk the responsibility of being a parent. Well, here's the thing. You know, there are consequences to our actions.
Mm-hmm.
And the ultimate, I would say, irresponsible thing you could do is to act as though you don't deserve consequences, good or bad. And when you get an abortion, you're getting out of that consequence. And I'm sorry to say it, but it's a consequence. And here's the thing. In my mind, it's a good consequence. If you get pregnant because you're doing if you're doing the thing that creates a kid and you get a kid, what were you expecting? A truck? I mean, that's the thing. It's a beautiful thing, but other people, the world makes you believe that bearing a child is wrong, and that's just not true. A lot of, look, adoption is a good way to have a child live their life, and people would say, well, I don't want them to be in the foster care system. That's not always the case. And you know something? Shame on you for generalizing the foster system. There have been many people who've come out of the foster system that have went through their hardships but have made great names for themselves.
Absolutely.
So so for you to shirk all those responsibilities, you can here's a good way. Instead of abortion, you can use contraceptives.
Well,
absolutely. You can go up for adoption, or you just don't have sex. There's that too. But the world would have you say, well, it's your passions, your desires. You should be able to do these things and not have any consequences. No, that's not how this works. That's not how this world has ever worked. No matter what, if you punch somebody and they punch you back, that's gonna happen. If you go wrestle with a tiger, you're 99% of the time gonna die. If you sleep around, unprotected, obviously, you're more than likely going to end up with a pregnancy that you may not have wanted, but guess what? That's where we're at.
Well, and that's it right there. I mean, there, as you said, there are ways, and I don't condone sex outside of marriage, but there are ways you can do it. And, and if you choose not to take those precautions and you still wind up pregnant, that's on you. And I shouldn't have to pay for it. And I know some people say, well, what happens if you take the precautions and she still ends up pregnant? That's still on you. It's not on me, because you shouldn't have been doing that if you weren't prepared for the possible outcome of that. And, I'm going to appeal to emotion maybe here a little bit, appeal to history. But, Churchill's mom was raped. Winston Churchill, his mom was raped. And I believe it was by a sailor, and I think he had syphilis, but I believe he had an STD of some sort. And that actually affected Churchill in some ways, as an adult growing up. And he dealt with deep depression. I don't know if that had anything to do with who his father was, but at the end of the day, thank God, Churchill's mom didn't abort him. So, just because you have something that you don't want doesn't mean that you have the right to abort it.
Yeah.
Because was that a consequence of a choice she made? No, that wasn't. But she made the choice to go ahead and have the baby. Yeah. And so, we can come up with all kinds of arguments that we want, but at the end of the day, it is a sin issue. It is an issue of the heart. And what has to happen is the church, have to repent, because there are churches that it's the same thing. Listen, marriage in itself, heterosexual marriage, again, like I said about abortion, it's not mentioned in the Constitution. That was the argument over gay marriage, was the fact that there were a lot of them that wanted to go into churches and make these churches perform gay weddings. Well, that again, this is an overstep of separation of church and state. The state cannot. We talked about this. The state cannot tell the church how they are to believe and how they are to act and how they are to conduct themselves. All the state can do is the state can provide freedom for worship. But it doesn't take the church out of being able to speak into certain things such as this and saying, well, we disagree with it. And if we show up in mass and we vote it out in our states, that's the way it is, because it's the majority that's voting for it. And that's why I said the government has no business taking these things and trying to make a law as a blanket law. It has nothing to do with safety. It has nothing. When we finally get to what is really going on here, this has nothing to do with safety. This has nothing to do with rights. This at the very root is a state that is trying to empower itself and set themselves up above God, and ultimately try to tell the church, you sit over there, be quiet, and just watch how this is done. That's what this is about at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's look, the church, you do not see the church as a whole. You do not see the church going in and saying, you must make everybody come to church. That's not going to happen, because the Christian church, the church that follows Christ, the church that will be his bride, we are an open door policy. Those of you who want to come as you are. But you won't see us going out, true believers, I should say, because I think that's a distinction people don't get every day to hear, is that there is a distinction. There is a way to tell the difference between a believer and somebody who is a Christian in name only. And that's those of us who want to love you. And I want to say this, because I didn't get to clarify this, but I'm not, I'm empathetic to those who do get assaulted sexually and have to deal with those things. I get that. And a lot of people would say, oh, well, now, that's just going to happen to people and they're going to be stuck with this. And it's like, you're right. But it's like Thomas said, it's where the church comes in. And I'm saying this, I wanted to calm myself down because I wanted to say this. I want to be from the heart to say, you're not alone. So those things happen. That's what this church is all about. This church has helped my mom and dad. My dad used to be a crackhead. And my mom, she was dealing with a whole bunch of depression and it just wasn't a good picture in my family's home. I mean, part of my testimony is that none of us chose that life. We were just thrown into it. My mom's adopted. My dad's parents were divorced. He grew up in Los Angeles in the 80s. I grew up in one of the worst crime-ridden areas of California in the early 2000s, being Modesto, California. And, it just wasn't pretty. But you want to know, the reality is that there was a church there that gave every chance to us to seek that redemption. There is no shame involved. The only shame that came from that was the self-realization of, oh, I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Or this isn't my fault, so therefore I don't need to dwell on it. And I'm not saying that's going to be easy. I'm just saying it's possible with a community of people who genuinely care. And I want that invitation to be extended to everybody. Because whether Roe v. Wade is around or not, abortion is going to happen. That part is true. I get that. But for those who are struggling with this, those who are going through this turmoil of what's happening right now, you're not alone, and you can seek help from people who want to be there for you. And I'm talking on both sides. If people are confused but I don't really know where to stand on this, well, okay, that's fine. There are some of us who do understand what the word says, and we want to say it in love. We don't want to chastise people. I know Thomas doesn't. I know I don't, and I know that our pastor Chris doesn't. So this is just more of another invitation. You know, Living Water Church Conway. If those of you who are listening are in the Conway area ever, by all means, doors are open. We'd love to have you.
And I want to say this: if you're listening to this and you have had an abortion, this isn't to condemn you. This is by no means condemn you. There's always forgiveness and love and mercy. This is, again, no, we don't ever want to come across as without compassion. I am one who believes that the most compassionate people are people that will just tell you the truth. They're not people who are going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm not here to do that. I'm not here to tell anybody what they want to hear. I want to tell people what it is we need to hear, because, if I'm going through something, I don't want to be told if I went to the doctor and God forbid I was told I had some kind of issue going on, some terminal issue, I don't want a doctor to just tell me, oh, everything's okay, go on home.
Right.
I want the doctor to say, hey, here's the problem. And either it's fixable or it's not. If it's fixable, okay, what route do we have? My faith's always going to be in God regardless. But if the doctor say we can fix it, then we'll fix it. If he doesn't, then, hey, you need to go get your house in order, whatever it is you need to do. Let the people know that you need to let know. But at that point, then I'm going to go, okay, the doctors have said absolutely nothing. God hasn't said nothing because I'm still breathing. So as long as you're still breathing, there's always mercy from God. So there's nothing here that's trying to condemn anyone. What we're simply trying to say is that we have to understand that as a country, as a culture, and especially those of us that are Christians and claim to be Christians, that there's always something more to the root. This isn't conspiracy theory. There's always something more to the root of the cause than what we're being shown. And so when they leak something like this, like they did on Monday night, the point was to rally a base that they know they're going to lose an election. That's what this was all about. So what they want to do is their most precious commodity is abortion. It just that really has always been their most prized possession that they fight for. And for some reason, there's a lot of people that get the idea that as Americans, we need the government to stand up and take charge and this and that and the other. No, we don't. Mm-mm. We as American people have the ability to make those decisions on our own. There's always going to be states, and I'll promise you, if we're right now in the state of Arkansas, if the state of Arkansas outlawed abortion tomorrow, you're going to find a bordering state that will still have it. I promise. It's not going to go anywhere. It's going to be a little inconvenient, but you know what? The state has the right. The state has the authority, and the people have the right and the authority.
Yeah, I think this is a good exchange, mainly because we just get this idea out there so we can talk about it. And, a big shout out to our supporters, those of us who support us, whether you give to the podcast or you're just watching at home on YouTube. Our views are going up. We're noticing that you guys are liking these shorter form conversations. And, like I always say, like, share, and subscribe. Shout out to Living Water Church Conway again. And, praise God for this opportunity to be here and do this. But I want to wish you guys a wonderful weekend. Be in prayer for this country and be having a watchful eye for anything else. Be safe.